Sex energy is infinite. Mahavira has named it infinite energy. In fact, Mahavira got his name from this. He called it infinite vitality, virya, not in the sense of biological energy, but because sex energy continually descends from the mind to the body, and in turn comes to the mind from the soul. These are its stages, without which it cannot descend. If the mind in the middle is disconnected from body and soul, the connection will be broken. The power which I call sex energy here is the same as in the yogic and tantric texts, which describe mystical formulas for the attainment of supernatural powers. It is not biological sex energy. This sex energy can rise upward. If it were to move upward even in an old man, his life would become as innocent and simple as that of a small child. That innocence would shine in his eyes again. The innocence and simplicity which are found in a child would return to his personality, perhaps even more so. The simplicity of a child is full of danger because it is going to disappear. Behind a child's simplicity there is a live volcano ready to erupt, and it will erupt soon. God, if the sex energy of an old man returns, his life will be full of innocence. This is saintliness. This innocence is saintliness. Sexual energy is directed by the mind and is firmly controlled by the mind. It does not flow downward without instruction from the mind. If the mind can control the flow of this sexual energy, it can also control sexual desire accordingly. If it is allowed to now more, it will increase and vice versa. During the last 20 years in America, the age of puberty for boys and girls has gone down by 2 years. Whereas earlier girls were sexually mature by the age of 13, now they mature at 11. This is because the American mind has exerted so much pressure from so many directions to send signals to the sex center. It is the most natural course of events in these circumstances. It may go down from 11 to 9 years, even down to 7 or 5. In America, everything has become a sex symbol. Sex is being exploited to sell anything from cars to cigarettes, with pictures of half-naked women. All this has a terrible effect in the mind. It starts giving out instructions to the body 2 years early. This is premature, and the results are bound to be dangerous. Quite the reverse has happened in India. We were successful in keeping young boys and girls totally untouched by the world of sexuality until the age of 25. But the whole framework was just the opposite. The whole system was different. All measures and arrangements were in place that the mind should not issue commands in that direction. Certain exercises were used, various body postures were used, and different meditations, thought processes and methods of contemplation were used to create resolve and willpower to prevent the mind from issuing commands to the sex center. If someone could prevent his sex energy from moving downward until the age of 25, he would experience so much bliss that in the future, upon becoming sexually active, he would be able to make a comparison. He would realize that there is a fundamental difference between the bliss he experienced before and after entering the world of sexuality. His mind would continually want to return to the old experience. So someone who lived a celibate life up to the age of 25 would be drawn toward sannyasa by the age of 50 because he had the opportunity to compare. Talking about the joys of celibacy makes no sense to anybody today because people have experienced only one kind of sexual bliss. Being without desire is not a part of their experience. This is unfortunate because once the energy has started to flow downward, it becomes difficult to make it rise upward. Tracks are created. If you spill a glass of water on the floor, the water will run off, leaving a track behind it. In the heat, that water will evaporate. No water will be left on the floor, but a dry track will remain. If you throw water onto the floor again, there is a 99% chance that the water will flow along that dried up track. It is natural to follow the path of least resistance. There is a desire to flow in the direction of the least amount of resistance. When an immature mind enters the world of sex, the life energy is eager to flow downward, according to the law of least resistance. There is pain and uneasiness in the mind as long as the sexual energy is not released. When it is released, the mind is relaxed. It feels as if it has become light and has been freed from a burden. Once the upward path is traveled, we experience this freedom all the time. It is necessary to understand 3 things in relation to how the mind can divert the sex energy upward. The first thing to understand is that anything which can go down can also go up. It is a scientific principle that anything which has the possibility to go down will also have the possibility to go up. If we travel a road, we can also travel up it. The road is the same, just the direction is changed. Life can expand in 2 dimensions. If water flows down from a mountain, it can also be sent to the top of the mountain, because the water can be lifted by methods which counter the law which make it flow downward. Sex energy moves downward, it is natural. If anyone wants to move it upward, it will not be easy or natural. This cannot be done naturally, it can only be achieved by a firm resolve. It can be achieved through man's efforts, by his keen desire, his longing, and his hard work. He will have to work hard in this case, because he will have to swim against the natural current. If you want to float downward the river toward the sea, you don't have to swim at all. You only have to float, keeping your arms and legs still. The river itself will take to the sea, but if want to go to the source of the river, to the place of its origin, you will have to swim, to work hard, because there will be a fight against the natural flow of the river. Those who want to rise, to lead a higher life, should understand the next point. They will need a firm resolve. The way will be full of conflicts. One can move upward, and the joys of the journey are beyond words. When flowing downward, sexual energy brings happiness, brings pleasure, but this pleasure is momentary. As the pleasure begins to decrease, unhappiness begins to rise, so behind all pleasure stands the shadow of unhappiness. But moving the energy upward brings extreme bliss, joy. Energy is gathered, and a reservoir is created. This reservoir can be infinite, it goes on growing every day, then there is an ever brighter world of bliss beyond bliss, with no shadow of unhappiness following behind. This bliss accumulates, because it grows by the day, with the potential to create an infinite reserve. I also mentioned resolve, and conflict. It will be useful here to understand what resolve means, and how that energy can rise upward with determination. I shall give 2 or 3 illustrations through which you can understand it fully. The Mohammedans observe fasting, the Jainas, the Hindus, and the Christians also observe fasts. Yesterday a friend was asking me the meaning of observing a fast. What happens by staying hungry? The people who started these practices were no fools. The need for food is the greatest of all needs in a person's life. It is the most important requirement for survival. A man can give up love, or a mother can kill her own child, to get food. During the Bengal famine, many mothers sold their children. A husband can kill his wife, can sell her, and a wife can get rid of her husband when death threatens. The need to save oneself, the instinct for survival, becomes very powerful. Other things can be replaced, but not one's life. A woman can find a second husband, another son can be born, but you cannot replace yourself, so food is the greatest need for survival. If a man fasts, he will think of food 24 hours a day. Every cell in his body will demand food. Awake or in his dreams, he will be longing for food. A place inside is empty, a biological gap is created within. The body demands food, and he is busy praying to God. The body is crying aloud for food, and he is praying aloud to God. In 2 or 3 days' time, the body's keen desire for food will be converted into a thirst for God. The demand of the body is for food, and if the body does not yield to it, and goes on insisting that it is God, not food, that is required, then within 4 to 6 days the body will begin to cry aloud for God instead of food. A metamorphosis has taken place. Energy which was demanding food is now demanding God, thus the strong resolve for food is now turned toward God. This is a great metamorphosis. Determination leads to a transformation of energies. When the mind demands sex, when it demands the other, the opposite, a woman, a man, when the mind wants to flow toward the other, then you will have to transform this energy. You will have to adopt the opposite system, so that the longing of the mind becomes a longing for liberation. 2 or 3 things need to be kept in mind. As soon as the mind desires sexual pleasure, the body begins to make preparations for it. A demand for the other is triggered at the sex center, the Muladhara, and the sex center becomes other-oriented. Tantra says that if in this moment the sex center turns inward, this has been called the sex mudra, then within moments you will find that the body has stopped demanding sex, but because the demand has arisen anyway, the energy has arisen, and now the body demand has dropped. This same energy can be taken upward. The moment we think of sex, the attention of our mind begins flowing toward the sex organs. The moment the sex organs are physically contracted inward, as in the sex mudra, all exits for sexual energy are closed. When the energy has already been awakened, the eyes should be closed. Then the eyes should begin to look at the head from within, just as you see a ceiling from within a room. With constant practice, within a month you will experience that something has started to rise from below. Some call it Kundalini, some give it another name. Pay attention to 2 points here. One is the Muladhara and other is the upper center, Sahasrara. The Sahasrara is our highest center, and the Muladhara is our lowest center. The Muladhara contracted inward, and the energy created in it tries to find a way out. Now direct the mind to the higher level, because that path is open. The energy of the body starts to now in the direction that the mind is showing. This is a process in transformation. If you experiment with this, celibacy can be achieved without suppression. This is not suppression, it is sublimation. Suppression means that the upward path is not open and are guarding the door at the lower level, keeping it in check. Then the result will be a troubled madness. If the path is there for the energy to flow, there will be no suppression, only sublimation. The energy from below will begin to flow upward. Do this experiment and grasp its significance. This is not theoretical, nor is it intellectual or scientific. It is experienced by millions of people, and it is an easy experiment. And as the flowers of joy and bliss begin to blossom in the higher regions of your brain, sex will begin to disappear from your life. It will disappear slowly and a new energy will be born, a new vigor, a new light, and a new life. It has nothing to do with physiology. If you dissect the body, the rising energy will not be seen. It is like a magnetic field. Even if you cut into the bones, no clue will be found anywhere. It is not at a physical level, like pain. It is psychic. It takes place in the mind and at the body level, but it does happen. With the downward movement of that energy, semen will be expressed. If it does not flow downward, semen will also cease flowing. The body will certainly be protected, but this experiment is not meant for the protection of the body. The body is limited by age, and it will pass away. It will not affect the aging process in any way. The experience is a psychic event. The individual begins to expand, to spread, to be enormous, in proportion to the psychic energy he possesses. Such a person can declare, "I am Brahman," on the day when not a single particle of psychic energy flows downward. The statement, "I am Brahman," is not a logical conclusion, it is an existential conclusion, it is an individual experience. When you are connected with the vastness of existence, you feel you are not an individual, but existence itself, but this experience only happens through the preservation of that enormous energy. And this preservation is impossible if the sex energy does not flow upward. Now this video is getting very lengthy, so we will continue this topic in next part. Zilion out.